Coach Javi Academy Podcast, Episode 1, Take 1. Before we start this podcast, I want to give a huge shout out, huge thank you to Matt Sheldon from Become Elite. Gave me a lot of tips, a lot of pointers on the process behind starting up a podcast, how I should go about it, what I should talk about, and basically how to set everything up. So thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Also, in order for me to give you guys these podcasts at the highest quality level, I will be recording these in 4K, putting them on this very channel, and I will also throw a color grade on there so you can see some nice rich colors. All right, you know what? Let's go straight into the intro.
Alexis with Messi. Magic. Alexis to Messi. Messi.
All right, so the idea behind these podcasts is mostly to bring guests on and for me to sit down and talk with these people, coaches, soccer players, anybody who has a lot of important information and experience behind the game, and just kind of have a sit down with you guys, chat a little bit, give you guys some important information, because usually in my videos it's a lot of entertaining and like vlog style type of videos or training videos, but there isn't very much where I just sit down and I kind of just chat with you guys about a lot of topics that you guys usually ask questions about. So that's the idea. If you have any topics, make sure you guys leave them down in the comment section, and I'll see if I can talk to you guys about those in the next episodes. I'm also going to break this down into the topics. So instead of just releasing like a 45-minute to an hour-long video, I'm going to release little snippets of every single podcast and just title it with the topic that we were talking about during that time. But today's podcast is just going to be me, no guests, more so because I'm just kind of testing out how all this is going to work, but also because I want to sit down and I think it's a perfect opportunity to talk to you guys about the SuperLiga final. So if you guys watched the live stream, I had it on Friday. We ended up losing the SuperLiga championship. I think it was 4-2 at the end. We had won every single game in the league up until the championship, absolutely bottled it, and we ended up losing against a very, very good Catenaccio team. So, like I said, I think this video came at the perfect time because it's a good opportunity for me to explain exactly why we lost, my thoughts behind it, and kind of just give you guys an explanation. Maybe it'll help you guys in your journey, and it'll give you guys a little bit of information that you guys can use as well. So the bottom line is there are no excuses. And I think it's very important to start out my reasoning with that line right there. You cannot blame it on one person. You cannot blame it on the referee. You cannot blame it on one play. Ultimately, at the end of the game, if you lost, no matter what the score is, you have to blame it on yourself. So as a team, it is not one person's fault, and it is everybody's fault. Basically, don't blame it on the defender who messed up a pass. Don't blame it on the forward who missed a goal. Everybody has to take responsibility for their loss. So, first of all, I want to give credit to Catenaccio, who played a fantastic game. They tactically outplayed us. They kept the ball. They made us chase. And defensively, they were pretty solid. They didn't give up that many spaces. And they beat us. From my perspective, I can go into the tactics of why we lost. But beyond the tactics, I think ultimately it came down to the fact that we were not prepared. We got outplayed. And we didn't have our best performance. And that's our fault and our fault only. If you talk about the tactics, you guys usually hear me talk about SuperLiga and how my team likes to keep the ball. We move the ball, we keep it. That way we're not so tired, and that way we can kind of open up spaces from the other team, force them to press, that kind of stuff. Basically, that's exactly what Catenaccio did against us in the final. We didn't have the ball. We were chasing the whole time, and by the time we actually got the ball, we were way too exhausted to actually do anything. But the important part isn't necessarily the tactics, because the tactics you can always change, you can always move around. And that's the easy part. That's the easy part to see, to analyze a game and be like, okay, here's where we went wrong here. This situation, we needed to do this. I'm more concerned, especially for kids nowadays, is the importance of understanding the responsibility behind a loss. We lost because we weren't ready. The referees had fantastic games. the other team played a fantastic game. We couldn't finish our opportunities, and we didn't prepare well enough during the day prior to the game in order to get the win. That's basically all it is. And unfortunately, we didn't prepare for the championship game. So I think nowadays kids have, and I don't know where, and maybe it's not nowadays, right? But maybe it's just in general. When you're younger, when you're not as mature as you are as you get older, right? The first thing that comes up into your mind, maybe because you hear it from other people, is excuses. You start thinking, what happened that caused us to fail? When in reality, the most important question you should ask yourself, and I'm sure that the players at the top level ask themselves, is what did I do wrong and what could I improve in order to have given my team a better chance to succeed or to win? And ultimately, those are the things that you can change. Those are the only things that you can really change. So a little bit of advice for youngsters, for players who are, trying to chase the dream, trying to go pro. Don't blame it on anybody else but yourself. Because ultimately, that's the only thing that you can control. So I often hear when I'm coaching kids and I talk to them about, how one of their games over the weekend went, or at school or whatever. And typically the first thing I hear is, we lost, but it was because the referee should have given the other team a red card, or they gave us a red card when it wasn't a red card, or, well, our goalkeeper passed it straight to their forward and he scored a goal, or, our defender slipped and then ended up doing a Stevie G. The guy comes and scores a goal. But it's rare to see someone say, you know what, coach, I have no excuses. I didn't play as well as I should have, and we didn't finish our opportunities, and we just weren't good enough. The other team was better. So I think it's important that you take a look back at yourself and you realize this, especially as you get older. So that's because I saw the comment section in the video of the live stream, and people were telling us oh, you should do this, you should do that. Coach Javi's team is having a nightmare. And I think a lot of people would immediately think I want to go in there and respond and be like, well, you don't know how hard it is or whatever. But ultimately, they're right. We were having a nightmare. We didn't play well, and we lost the game. So I think that's an important lesson. But going beyond that, right, after you've accepted that fact, the other important factor is what can you do to make sure that doesn't happen in the future, right? So when I got home, I started thinking, and after I watched the game and after I analyzed it, my thought immediately shifted to what can we do in the next SuperLiga to make sure that this doesn't happen? Is it the fact that maybe I need to recruit different players? Is it the fact that maybe I need to recruit a specific position? Is it maybe that I need to go in and talk to my team a little bit more about tactically defending? Or, I think that's the important part. It's setting a plan. So you don't make the excuses, but you also have to set a plan and realize that you can't fix it if you don't have a plan and if you don't go through with the plan. Because it's very easy to say, this is why we lost, but it's a completely different thing to actually put the plan into action and fix it for the next time around. So I think that's what I'm going to do in the next few weeks, is think about what are some of the changes that we can make in order for that not to happen again, because obviously nobody wants to lose a final. So I guess that's the biggest lesson of this video. But yeah, it is what it is, man. You lose, you win. The one thing I will say to end this video here, to end this short little podcast, is if you won all the time and if you never lost, this game would be boring. I think the reason football is such a beautiful game is because of the emotions that it can evoke out of people, right? You can lose 100 finals in a row, but the moment you win that first final, that is going to be the greatest feeling in the world. If you win 100 finals, that 101 is not going to feel as good as the very first one that you won. So I'm not too worried about whether we win or we lose. Obviously, I want to win, but I think you have to accept that there's going to be defeats, and you have to be okay with that. And after the game, the reason I didn't put my head down and I wasn't like, oh man, this sucks, I don't want to talk to anyone, I'm going to be in a bad mood, is because when I look back at it in a few years' time, I want to remember it as we got second place, but we had a fantastic time. We celebrated with everybody else. And at the end of the day, every day is a good day. There's no such thing as a bad day. I'm fortunate enough to be playing this game, to have 2 feet to be able to play it, to have a beautiful G-friend, to have an amazing family, and to live every single day doing what I love to do and enjoying what I love to do. And there's really nothing that can change that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you got to be grateful for everything, regardless if you won the final or if you lost the final. But then on top of that, you have to also improve as a person, improve as a player, and fix it for next time. So, yeah, sorry. First podcast, Coach Javi's already babbling on about random stuff, but that's going to be it for today. Accept your failures, learn from them, get better. Do not give anybody excuses, because excuses don't matter, and be happy. All right, that's it. Until next time, and adios. Muchachos.
Messi. Brilliant. Messi.